Welcome to the channel Legendary Legacy, Book Recap Audio, where you can enjoy the summaries of the best audiobooks without spending a. Today, we will recap the book A Tale of Two Cities by Charles Dickens, which is one of the best-selling books of all time. This is a classic novel that depicts the French Revolution and its impact on the lives of two men who love the same woman. You will witness the drama, romance, and tragedy of this historical fiction. It has sold over 200 million copies worldwide. It is also considered as one of the most influential works of literature in history. If you want to listen to the full audiobook of this book, you can visit the channel Legendary Legacy, Audiobook Free Daily, and search for the book title. You can listen to the recap audiobook episodes of the channel are published on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, and other podcast platforms. You can search for our channel by typing Legendary Legacy, Audiobook Recap into the search bar. Please support our channel by liking, commenting, and subscribing so that we have more motivation to produce more audiobook episodes with the best and latest quality. Thank you for listening and have a nice day. Preface. The book, A Tale of Two Cities by Charles Dickens, is a classic novel that depicts the French Revolution and its impact on the lives of two men who love the same woman. The book is divided into three parts: Recalled to Life, The Golden Thread, and The Track of a Storm. The book explores the themes of sacrifice, resurrection, and redemption, as well as the contrast between the cities of London and Paris. The book begins with the famous line, "It was the best of times, it was the worst of times." In a brief note, Dickens mentions the source of inspiration for A Tale of Two Cities, a play in which he acted, called The Frozen Deep, written by his friend Wilkie Collins. He adds that he hopes that he can further his readers' understanding of the French Revolution, that terrible time, but that no one can truly hope to surpass Thomas Carlyle's The French Revolution, published in 1837. Full book summary. The year is 1775, and social ills plague both France and England. Jerry Cruncher, an odd-job man who works for Tellson's Bank, stops the Dover mail coach with an urgent message for Jarvis Lorry. The message instructs Lorry to wait at Dover for a young woman, and Lorry responds with the cryptic words, "Recalled to life." At Dover, Lorry is met by Lucie Manette, a young orphan whose father, a once eminent doctor whom she supposed dead, has been discovered in France. Lorry escorts Lucie to Paris, where they meet Defarge, a former servant of Dr. Manette, who has kept Manette safe in a garret. Driven mad by 18 years in the Bastille, Manette spends all of his time making shoes, a hobby he learned while in prison. Lorry assures Lucie that her love and devotion can recall her father to life, and indeed they do. The year is now 1780. Charles Darnay stands accused of treason against the English crown. A bombastic lawyer named Stryver pleads Darnay's case, but it is not until his drunk, good-for-nothing colleague, Sydney Carton, assists him that the court acquits Darnay. Carton clinches his argument by pointing out that he himself bears an uncanny resemblance to the defendant, which undermines the prosecution's case for unmistakably identifying Darnay as the spy the authorities spotted. Lucie and Dr. Manette watched the court proceedings, and that night, Carton escorts Darnay to a tavern and asks how it feels to receive the sympathy of a woman like Lucie. Carton despises and resents Darnay because he reminds him of all that he himself has given up and might have been. In France, the cruel Marquis Evrémonde runs down a plebeian child with his carriage. Manifesting an attitude typical of the aristocracy in regard to the poor at that time, the Marquis shows no regret, but instead curses the peasantry and hurries home to his chateau, where he awaits the arrival of his nephew, Darnay, from England. Arriving later that night, Darnay curses his uncle and the French aristocracy for its abominable treatment of the people. He renounces his identity as an Evrémonde and announces his intention to return to England. That night, the Marquis is murdered. The murderer has left a note signed with the nickname adopted by French revolutionaries, Jacques. A year passes, and Darnay asks Manette for permission to marry Lucie. He says that, if Lucie accepts, he will reveal his true identity to Manette. Carton, meanwhile, also pledges his love to Lucie, admitting that, though his life is worthless, she has helped him dream of a better, more valuable existence. On the streets of London, Jerry Cruncher gets swept up in the funeral procession for a spy named Roger Cly. Later that night, he demonstrates his talents as a resurrection man, sneaking into the cemetery to steal and sell Cly's body. In Paris, meanwhile, another English spy known as John Barsad drops into Defarge's wine shop. Barsad hopes to turn up evidence concerning the mounting revolution, which is still in its covert stages. Madame Defarge sits in the shop knitting a secret registry of those whom the revolution seeks to execute. Back in London, Darnay, on the morning of his wedding, keeps his promise to Manette. He reveals his true identity and, that night, Manette relapses into his old prison habit of making shoes. After 9 days, Manette regains his presence of mind, and soon joins the newlyweds on their honeymoon. Upon Darnay's return, Carton pays him a visit and asks for his friendship. Darnay assures Carton that he is always welcome in their home. The year is now 1789. The peasants in Paris storm the Bastille and the French Revolution begins. The revolutionaries murder aristocrats in the streets, and Gabelle, a man charged with the maintenance of the Evremond estate, is imprisoned. 3 years later, he writes to Darnay, asking to be rescued. Despite the threat of great danger to his person, Darnay departs immediately for France. As soon as Darnay arrives in Paris, the French revolutionaries arrest him as an emigrant. Lucie and Manette make their way to Paris in hopes of saving him. Darnay remains in prison for a year and 3 months before receiving a trial. In order to help free him, Manette uses his considerable influence with the revolutionaries, who sympathize with him for having served time in the Bastille. Darnay receives an acquittal, but that same night he is arrested again. The charges, this time, come from Defarge and his vengeful wife. Carton arrives in Paris with a plan to rescue Darnay and obtains the help of John Barsad, who turns out to be Solomon Pross, the long-lost brother of Miss Pross, Lucie's loyal servant. At Darnay's trial, Defarge produces a letter that he discovered in Manette's old jail cell in the Bastille. The letter explains the cause of Manette's imprisonment. Years ago, the brothers Evremond, Darnay's father and uncle, enlisted Manette's medical assistance. They asked him to tend to a woman, whom one of the brothers had raped, and her brother, whom the same brother had stabbed fatally. Fearing that Manette might report their misdeeds, the Evremonds had him arrested. Upon hearing this story, the jury condemns Darnay for the crimes of his ancestors and sentences him to die within 24 hours. That night, at the Defarge wine shop, Carton overhears Madame Defarge plotting to have Lucie and her daughter, also Darnay's daughter, executed as well. Madame Defarge, it turns out, is the surviving sibling of the man and woman killed by the Evremonds. Carton arranges for the Manette's immediate departure from France. He then visits Darnay in prison, tricks him into changing clothes with him, and, after dictating a letter of explanation, drugs his friend unconscious. Barsad carries Darnay, now disguised as Carton, to an awaiting coach, while Carton, disguised as Darnay, awaits execution. As Darnay, Lucie, their child, and Dr. Manette speed away from Paris, Madame Defarge arrives at Lucie's apartment, hoping to arrest her. There she finds the supremely protective Miss Pross. A scuffle ensues, and Madame Defarge dies by the bullet of her own gun. Sydney Carton meets his death at the guillotine, and the narrator confidently asserts that Carton dies with the knowledge that he has finally imbued his life with meaning. Full book analysis. A Tale of Two Cities is structured around a central conflict between Charles Darnay's desire to break free of his family legacy, and Madame Defarge's desire to hold him accountable for the violent actions of his father and uncle. This conflict embodies conflicting aspects of the French Revolution in general. On one hand, the revolution led to the deaths of many people who hadn't done anything wrong, and were likely good people on a personal level. On the other hand, the revolution was a response to generations of well-documented injustices. Like Darnay, many French aristocrats could be considered guilty by association, or as a result of profiting from systems of exploitation. The plot is set in motion years before the action of the novel begins, when the Evremond brothers participate in a series of violent and cruel actions toward members of Madame Defarge's family, and then unjustly imprison young Dr. Manette in order to conceal their crimes. Readers don't find out about these incidents until late in the novel, but the fact that they have been propelling the plot mirrors how history unfolds. The violence of the revolution doesn't just come out of nowhere, it breaks out because of the accumulation of decades of unjust treatment and abuses of power. Similarly, crimes committed generations earlier continue to haunt and threaten Darnay, Lucie, and Dr. Manette. Key events like Darnay building a career for himself in England, getting married, and starting his own family seem to be taking him closer to his desire of living a good and honest life without exploiting or hurting anyone. However, as Darnay eventually realizes, he hasn't actually resolved the conflict because he has never taken responsibility for the suffering his family has caused. He has only run away from it. As Darnay admits, he knew very well that in his love for Lucie, his renunciation of his social place had been hurried and incomplete. In order to fully obtain his desire and break all bonds with a system he despises, Darnay returns to France. Darnay's return moves the action quickly toward its climax. When Darnay gets arrested, freed, and then arrested a second time, the conflict intensifies between Darnay's freedom and Madame Defarge's desire to see him and all of his family punished. The novel resolves this conflict with twin climaxes. Sydney Carton smuggles Darnay out of prison and takes his place on the execution block, while Madame Defarge becomes a victim of her own desire for violence after she is killed while struggling with Miss Pross. These climaxes allow Darnay to achieve his goal of being fully liberated from his family burden. After another man dies for his sins, he goes on to live a happy and peaceful life. The falling action is largely revealed in Carton's hypothetical final vision, showing the Manette-Darnay family living happily together, and faithfully remembering the man who gave up his life for them. A Tale of Two Cities quotes. Quote number 1, a wonderful fact to reflect upon, that every human creature is constituted to be that profound secret and mystery to every other. Quote number 2, it is a far, far better thing that I do, than I have ever done, it is a far, far better rest that I go to than I have ever known. Quote number 3, it was the best of times, it was the worst of times, it was the age of wisdom, it was the age of foolishness, it was the epoch of belief, it was the epoch of incredulity, it was the season of light, it was the season of darkness, it was the spring of hope, it was the winter of despair. Quote number 4, you have been the last dream of my soul. Quote number 5, it was the best of times, it was the worst of times. Quote number 6, I wish you to know that you have been the last dream of my soul. Quote number 7, and yet I have had the weakness, and have still the weakness, to wish you to know with what a sudden mastery you kindled me, heap of ashes that I am, into fire. Quote number 8, I see a beautiful city and a brilliant people rising from this abyss. I see the lives for which I lay down my life, peaceful, useful, prosperous and happy. I see that I hold a sanctuary in their hearts, and in the hearts of their descendants, generations hence. It is a far, far better thing that I do, than I have ever done, it is a far, far better rest that I go to than I have ever known. Quote number 9, a day wasted on others is not wasted on oneself. Quote number 10, there is prodigious strength in sorrow and despair. Quote number 11, for you, and for any dear to you, I would do anything. If my career were of that better kind that there was any opportunity or capacity of sacrifice in it, I would embrace any sacrifice for you and for those dear to you. Try to hold me in your mind, at some quiet times, as ardent and sincere in this one thing. The time will come, the time will not be long in coming, when new ties will be formed about you, ties that will bind you yet more tenderly and strongly to the home you so adorn, the dearest ties that will ever grace and gladden you. Oh, Miss Manette, when the little picture of a happy father's face looks up in yours, when you see your own bright beauty springing up anew at your feet, think now and then that there is a man who would give his life, to keep a life you love beside you. Quote number 12, think now and then that there is a man who would give his life, to keep a life you love beside you. Quote number 13, before I go, he said, and paused, I may kiss her. Quote number 14, it was remembered afterwards that when he bent down and touched her face with his lips, he murmured some words. The child, who was nearest to him, told them afterwards, and told her grandchildren when she was a handsome old lady, that she heard him say, a life you love. Quote number 15, sadly, sadly, the sun rose. It rose upon no sadder sight than the man of good abilities and good emotions, incapable of their directed exercise, incapable of his own help and his own happiness, sensible of the blight on him, and resigning himself to let it eat him away. Quote number 16, a multitude of people and yet a solitude. Quote number 17, a dream, all a dream, that ends in nothing, and leaves the sleeper where he lay down, but I wish you to know that you inspired it. Quote number 18, death may beget life, but oppression can beget nothing other than itself. Quote number 19, since I knew you, I have been troubled by a remorse that I thought would never reproach me again, and have heard whispers from old voices impelling me upward, that I thought were silent forever. I have had unformed ideas of striving afresh, beginning anew, shaking off sloth and sensuality, and fighting out the abandoned fight. A dream, all a dream, that ends in nothing, and leaves the sleeper where he lay down, but I wish you to know that you inspired it. Quote number 20, I love your daughter fondly, dearly, disinterestedly, devotedly. If ever there were love in the world, I love her. Quote number 21, not knowing how he lost himself, or how he recovered himself, he may never feel certain of not losing himself again. Quote number 22, then tell wind and fire where to stop, returned Madame, but don't tell me. Quote number 23, vengeance and retribution require a long time, it is the rule. Quote number 24, a wonderful fact to reflect upon, that every human creature is constituted to be that profound secret and mystery to every other. A solemn consideration, when I enter a great city by night, that every one of those darkly clustered houses encloses its own secret, that every room in every one of them encloses its own secret, that every beating heart in the hundreds of thousands of breasts there is, in some of its imaginings, a secret to the heart nearest it. Something of the awfulness, even of death itself, is referable to this. No more can I turn the leaves of this dear book that I loved, and vainly hope in time to read it all. No more can I look into the depths of this unfathomable water, wherein, as momentary lights glanced into it, I have had glimpses of buried treasure and other things submerged. It was appointed that the book should shut with a spring, forever and forever, when I had read but a page. It was appointed that the water should be locked in an eternal frost, when the light was playing on its surface, and I stood in ignorance on the shore. My friend is dead, my neighbor is dead, my love, the darling of my soul, is dead. It is the inexorable consolidation and perpetuation of the secret that was always in that individuality, and which I shall carry in mind to my life's end. In any of the burial places of this city through which I pass, is there a sleeper more inscrutable than its busy inhabitants are, in their innermost personality, to me, or than I am to them? Quote number 25, liberty, equality, fraternity, or death, the last, much the easiest to bestow, O guillotine. Quote number 26, all through it, I have known myself to be quite undeserving. And yet I have had the weakness, and have still the weakness, to wish you to know with what a sudden mastery you kindled me, heap of ashes that I am, into fire, a fire, however, inseparable in its nature from myself, quickening nothing, lighting nothing, doing no service, idly burning away. Quote number 27, there is a man who would give his life to keep a life you love beside you. Quote number 28, crush humanity out of shape once more, under similar hammers, and it will twist itself into the same tortured forms. Sow the same seeds of rapacious license and oppression over again, and it will surely yield the same fruit according to its kind. Quote number 29, I see a beautiful city and a brilliant people rising from this abyss, and, in their struggles to be truly free, in their triumphs and defeats, through long years to come, I see the evil of this time and of the previous time of which this is the natural birth, gradually making expiation for itself and wearing out. Quote number 30, nothing that we do, is done in vain. I believe, with all my soul, that we shall see triumph. Quote number 31, and a beautiful world we live in, when it is possible, and when many other such things are possible, and not only possible, but done, see you, under that sky there, every day. We hope you enjoyed our summary and recap of this book. If you want to listen to the full audiobook of this book, you can visit the channel Legendary Legacy, Audiobook Free Daily, and search for the book title. You can listen to the recap audiobook episodes of the channel are published on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, and other podcast platforms. Please support our channel by liking, commenting, and subscribing so that we have more motivation to produce more recap audiobook episodes with the best and latest quality. Thank you for listening and have a nice day.